Welcome to Portfolio Planning. This is the show, this is the space where you can come to learn about finances. So if you are someone who doesn't have access to financial conversations, learning about money, learning about the resources that can put you further ahead financially, we got you. This is the spot for that. Save, share, subscribe, watch. And today we're going to be talking about tariffs, capital gains have been paused, why, what's going on with that. And then we want to teach you about compounding interest. So how does that work for you in regards to your investments, how you can start to expedite your growth? And also, Mike's going to share some secrets on how that works for you when it comes to your mortgage and using what we've seen in the last year to understand how your debt repayment actually works and how compounding affects that as well. So as usual, you got Mike, you got myself, Vishal, you got Tyson, portfolio planning, HomeHappy team here for you guys. Let's jump into it. What the heck is going on with tariffs?
On again, off again, on again, off again.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly negotiating. He loves negotiating, and I think this is the way he's doing it. He's kind of like beating up on a little kid, but I mean, it's what he wants to do. And I think we as Canadians need to understand that it's he's looking after his country and taking advantage of weakness that he sees. It's going to impact us. I mean, even by not doing it, he's impacted us already. Um, I do think a big part of this is trying to stop fentanyl from crossing the border, and I think it's a bigger issue than we kind of know. I think they know things we aren't aware of in the regular media, but fentanyl is terrible, regardless of whether it's in Canada or the U.S. So I think there is some uh, things there that we should look at and take seriously. And we do have to treat him seriously because he's got a lot of power and he is getting away with doing what he wants to do. Tyson?
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the times with the news cycle and with our 60-second media clips that we get on social media, a lot of people think that this is about the price of cheese or the price of oil that we send down there. But you're right in that I think there's second, third, and fourth order effects where it's fentanyl, it's health crisis, it's mental health crisis. It bleeds into a lot of other areas. And so to stop the fourth order effect, you have to address the easy ones, which is he's using tariffs as a lever to bring the negotiations to the table. I don't like it. I don't want it to happen, but he, like you said, he's taking care of his country first. And even Jordan Peterson says, before you go out and change the world, you have to first change your room and make your bed and do that stuff, right? And so this is in effect him trying to make the bed, and it's been unmade for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. I don't like it, but I get it. I think that's kind of a conversation we talk to clients. It's like, yes, I don't like it, but I get it. I understand. I think we've been underperforming, and by we I mean Canada. I think we've been underperforming for a while in a number of different things. But I think this is a good wake-up call for us to expect more from our leaders. And, for better or for worse, at the end of the day, you have someone in the States down south who really advocates for their country. I think we should hold our leaders to the same standard where this is what Canadians want. We want our taxes to be spent efficiently. I think I've never really ran into a Canadian or a client who has a problem spending money on taxes. They have a problem with how the taxes are being spent. The best thing about Canada is we take care of our old, our sick, our poor, but it's tough when that money is spent irresponsibly and there's no checks or balances, there's no accountability, and there's no better option out there. So I think this is a good thing for us to expect more from our leaders and what the next decade or so looks like because we've been pretty irresponsible for the last decade. Our debt's been ballooning, our cost of living has been crazy. People are struggling more than they've ever struggled in a long time. And that's never a good situation. So hopefully the tariffs don't turn back on and the scare tactic worked and things will be changing. Again, who knows? There's a lot of things you can control. The thing you can control is voting. It's very important, in my opinion, that you, again, this is just my opinion, I won't speak for everybody, but I think it's very important that you, number one, vote and exercise your right to vote because that is a great privilege that we all have. And number two, don't get so upset of how the people around you vote. It's not a battle. You don't need to excommunicate people because they vote differently than you. People have different priorities in their life, and that's okay. You should always be amicable, but always make sure you vote, and then you accept other people's right to vote and how they vote, and just live with the decision. And that's my thoughts on the tariffs. Capital gains, however, wild. That's very different. Capital gains has been something that's been talked about for a long time, potentially increasing, and then did increase, and then they didn't increase, and then they're not sure if they're increasing, and now they're pausing it. There's been craziness. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago when they said that because Trudeau was stepping down, they're not going to be moving forward with the capital gains. But then the CRA said that they are probably going to. And then there was a lot of tax questions about what's going to happen for people that were rushing to sell things. But now it seems like that stuff has been paused for until 2026. Um, and that's great. I think the overarching theme that Tyson and we talk to our clients about on the portfolio planning side is you shouldn't be rushing to sell things for that reason anyways. If you're buying something, it's for good fundamentals and you want to hold it for the long term. Perhaps it's a business, perhaps it's real estate, perhaps it's a combination of equities. But regardless, you shouldn't be rushing to sell things because it might have a small incremental tax. It's not as big as people think it is, but it's going to be a bigger tax bill. But you shouldn't just offload all your stuff. And what we do see a lot of times is people in our space, in the finance space, almost fear sell, where oh, capital gains, you gotta contact me today and sign up for this and sell this and put the strategy in place. And if you don't do it, you're crazy. And then it's really awkward when things change back and they're like, well, I guess that wasn't as big of a deal as I thought. The reality is no one out there has a magic 8 ball to know what the government or the CRA is thinking. It's all just speculative in nature. We can do our best by looking at historical things that have happened and try and map out the future. But more importantly, our job as financial planners and your job as a retail investor is to buy things you understand that you want to hold for the long term. So regardless what happens with government changes, CRA changes, global changes, you're still comfortable buying it for the long haul, and you're not over leveraging yourself by putting all of your money into this one thing. You're investing responsibly, and it's diversified. That's my opinion on capital gains. Tyson, got anything to add?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at a accountant round table and I was invited and I was honestly the dumbest person in the room. We had tax lawyers, we had high level accountants, and they were talking about stuff and it was like, they're lobbing missiles at each other about this strategy and this section of this code and I was like, whoa, I was taking notes. But when capital gains came up, all of them had the same opinion, is that we honestly don't know what to do because at that time, this was about 3 weeks ago, right? We're recording this early February, so it was about 3 weeks ago. They were under the assumption that they had to act on the proposed new capital gains, but you have to pay tax at that proposed gain, but you're not allowed to benefit from it. So some of the ripple benefits is like if you're a business owner and you're doing something and you're paying the higher capital gains inclusion rate, technically your capital dividend account should also be higher and reflect that. And so somewhere in the writing, CRA says when changes are happening, you have to pay the higher tax, but you're not allowed to take advantage of the higher benefits because it's not law. It's like, well, hold on a minute. It's not law. Why am I paying tax? Because CRA said so. And so this was the discussion that went on for about 40 minutes. It was really interesting to be a fly on the wall. And essentially, I mean, they didn't want to risk their clients getting a bill with interest for not paying the capital or higher capital gains inclusion rate. So they were going to go the route of paying the higher inclusion rate. But if you were to risk if you did do that and they change it back or they don't implement it, which is where we are now, then you could expect a large refund check sometime in the future because CRA drags their feet on giving money back, right? 18 to 24 months, you're going to get a large check back. So that whole conversation's gone out the window. There will be another one of those round tables in a couple of weeks, and I really want to go back because I want to see what they're going to say now. But it was interesting to hear their thoughts on it because they are the front line, soldiers on this battle of like, how do we actually file this tax and how is it impacting the range of their clients?
And
Well,
I'll just add, I'm not
so
an expert at all, but I think it's funny how one government idea about increasing a tax can cause all this pain and sorrow for financial planners and accountants and lawyers and all these different people who have to deal with the public on a law that was never passed
That's right.
and a CRA that's decided they were going to try and do it anyways. Now, obviously, it's been changed, but to me, it's just such a dumb, like, whatever amount the government was going to make off it, they caused way more in cost for people than just, I don't know why tax systems have to be so complicated. The less complicated to me, the more likely people are to pay their taxes. People don't have a problem paying tax, but when you make it so convoluted that you have to hire three professionals to try and deal with it, that's insane. Like we've gone so far. Anyways, I don't want to go on a rant, but I just think it just is a classic example of the wrong way to govern. I just think it's wrong.
Yeah, I'm just thankful that Tyson turned a 3 hour tax planner consulting thing into like a 45-second review. So I appreciate that, Tyson. That's good,
No
man.
worries. No worries. There's a lot of big words used in that room.
Yeah, that's amazing. Perfect. So that's our opinions on kind of what's going on right now with the tariffs, the capital gains. General rule of thumb is it probably shouldn't be changing your financial plan all that much. We talk about this week after week after week. Have a good fundamental plan that is built to absorb the ups and downs as much as possible. So it shouldn't really change. If you're wanting to have a good financial plan, a good indicator is, has this affected you tremendously? If the answer is no, you're probably pretty decent when it comes to having a well-oiled machine. I'm sure you could probably improve it here and there, but if you're someone that this is really crushing you, it's definitely time to take a look at your own situation. Like, how can I hedge my risks a bit more? Because secret, the government's always going to be doing some crazy stuff. The series is always going to be doing some crazy stuff. So your plan should be able to absorb that. Switching gears, let's go back to the education corner. So when it comes to compound interest, people hear compounding so much. They're thrown around all the time. Compound returns, compound this, compound investment, compound debt. It's thrown around so much that people don't even know what it means anymore. So let's keep it nice and simple. When it comes to debt and investing, let's talk about the debt first. So, Mike, when it comes to compounding interest, does that benefit clients? Does it hurt clients? And how does that work when it comes to your mortgage?
Sure. I mean, just on a really simple example, if you're paying 5% on a mortgage and you owed 100 grand, approximately 5,000 in interest a year, but it doesn't work that way because it depends on when it's compounded. If it's compounded semi-annually, like most mortgages are, then twice a year. So the equivalent works out to about 5,200 in interest. If it's compounded monthly, it's actually a lot higher. It's more like 5,500. So the interest compounds. From a lending borrowing point of view, I think the easy way to think about it is this: if you're paying, let's say you put an extra $1,000 on your mortgage and you owed 100,000, now the balance is 99,000. Now the interest accumulating on it is based on the 99,000, not the 100,000. A lot of people think mortgages are prepaid, and it's confusing. The US does some of that stuff. We don't do that. So whatever your current monthly balance is, that's what the interest is charged on. So think of it that way. Like, that's why even making a minimum extra payment of $100 or $200 can actually impact your mortgage. And I know people see, oh, it's a 25-year mortgage or it's a 30-year mortgage. Oh my God, it takes forever to pay off. It doesn't have to take forever to pay off. I mean, you can pay a mortgage off, even paying off 20% a year, you're going to pay it off in 4.5 years or almost 5 years. So, I mean, it's obviously most people aren't walking around with the money to pay that off that fast, but it doesn't mean you have to completely not make any extra payments. I think it's super important to understand compounding can work for you or against you. And if you don't make extra payments, it's working against you. If you are investing regularly, that compounding helps you. So I'll let Tyson take over on that side.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Albert Einstein actually says that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and he who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. And I've always loved that. I think that's a great thought process on it. But you're exactly right, Mike, is that if you don't understand how the compound interest works on your mortgage, sometimes it feels like throwing money into a hole and you're like, is it even reaching the bottom? Did it evaporate partway down? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? Um, and then it's also frustrating sometimes to hear advice from these financial talking heads that are based in like the Midwest USA. And they say, hey, you know what? You should just do this and this and this and pay your mortgage off in 10 years. And you're like, well, your house is still $100,000. And, that applied to Vancouver in 1995 and it
Yeah.
hasn't for a while.
Yeah.
The other one that I like or when we think about compound interest and what it means is Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's partner for a long, long time. He says the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. And I think a lot of people make this mistake where they think because they're investing, they want to see how much growth that they have, and they also want to spend it really quickly. And so we get a lot of conversations. Vishal and I get calls for, somebody, they put their first, $10,000 in. And then they want to have conversations about rates of return and allocation and stocks. And they really want to get into investing. But even if we got you 100% rate of return on your $10,000, you only have $20,000 now. You can't retire on it. You're not rich. You can't buy a car. And that's with stellar performance. But it's actually easier for you to go out and just make another $10,000 and invest that. So those are some of the early, very basic investing and compounding conversations that we have. Is early on there, you have to treat it as if there is no compounding. But in years 25, 30, 35, that's when the compounding magic really, really starts to happen, because it takes time for you to accumulate your base load in your portfolio. One of the things that we talk to clients about when we're talking about compounding is a rule to understand it, and it's called the rule of 72. So if you take your rate of return and you divide it by 72, it's going to tell you the approximate number of years it takes your portfolio to double. So the magic number, everyone thinks that they're going to get 10% on their investments. So at 10%, your money is going to double every 7.2 years. Well, let's call it 7 years, right? So if we say like, Vishal, if you had $50,000 in an account and it's earning 10%, how old are you right now?
33.
Okay, approximately 33, right? So at age 40, you would have $100,000. And then in another 7 years, at age 47, you'd have $200,000. At age 54, you'd have $400,000. At age 60, what did I say? 54, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you're in your 60s and now you have like $800,000. So the compounding at the tail end is so much more significant, but you have to be able to withstand the upfront periods of, not much growth, but it is working for you.
I'll just add a couple of quick pro tips to do with compounding interest. We've just gone through a phase of higher rates. Those that were in variable rate mortgages that were adjustable, basically their payment kept going up and up and up. It was scary. It's been the worst scenario we've had in probably 20 years. But for those that survived it, and their payment, say, went to 5,000, and now it's coming down again, we try to coach people on, well, if you were okay with 5,000, what if you just let it go down to 4,500, but then keep it there? Because you can keep your payment. You don't have to let it keep dropping down. So if you kept it at 4,500, way more is going towards principal, and now that 25-year mortgage is turning into 18 years or 16 years. And so really key to don't just let it completely drop down. If you got used to it, try to keep it as high as you can. Or if you are going to let your payment come down, use that money now to invest or do good things with it. Don't just piss it away. The other thing that we call payment shock is if you're in a fixed rate for 5 years and rates are going up in that scenario. A lot of people were in a fixed rate. I'm fine. My payment isn't going up. I'm good. What we would recommend is every time the rate went up, increase your payment by the equivalent amount of what it would have been. Use a mortgage calculator, figure out your payment would have gone from 2,500 to 2,700. Well, increase it. And if you match what's going on in the market, two things: when your mortgage comes due, you're used to those payments, so you can handle it. But the big other thing is you've paid your mortgage down a ton because you were paying a lower rate and you paid way more in principal. So you might have knocked 5 years off your mortgage, or 7 or 8, and that's where compounding can work for you. So those are really important things to understand. If you want details, I can explain it better. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. That's like cash flow intelligence. And
Yeah.
Vishal and I had the same conversation. It's February, it's RSP season. You're going to put a bunch of money into your RSPs, and then in April, you're going to get a refund check. Don't upgrade the size of your TV. Don't buy a boat. Don't go to Mexico. You should put that money on your mortgage or in your tax-free savings account, or like use the money twice so it compounds in your favor. And so we have those conversations a lot, and everybody laughs, but still some people upgrade their TVs and buy boats and go to Mexico.
Yeah, and all three.
Yeah, yes.
Depends on the return. Yeah. Mike, I think it's really well said. I really like that idea of increasing your payments, even if you're fixed. I think we saw that with a lot of people that were absolutely shocked when their term came up for renewal. They never heard from their mortgage broker or their bank, mostly their bank. They never heard from their bank the entire time. And
Yeah.
then the term came up, and like, holy cow, I like triple my payments, and how did I even absorb this? So if you do it incrementally, you're having a doubling effect. You're paying down your principal, and you're also getting yourself used to it, which is fantastic on the way up. But now that rates are going down, Mike just nailed that perfectly. Don't spend your money. If you're used to your payments but you need a bit of a break, you can bring your payments down from like 5,000 to 4,500, for example. And within that 4,500, you can keep your payments there and keep on paying more debt down. And now you're paying more of your principal instead of just the interest. Or perhaps you can talk to your broker and they could do like a refinance so your payments come around the 4,500, but you get a large lump sum of tax-free money. I can use that to fill up your RSPs. And then what will happen is you can get a big tax return. Don't buy a boat, but you can get a big tax return. And with that tax return, you can redeposit it. And then to Tyson's earlier point, you can basically skip those early years of having no compounding that you don't see. And you skip right ahead to like 2 decades ahead. And now you're getting really great returns on your compounding investment. And what you did is you kept your payments that you were already kind of used to, got a small reduction, but you pulled out a lot of tax-free cash on your home, put that into a tax return vehicle like your RRSP, got that return, put that back in your RRSP, and now you're letting compounding work towards you, work for you, and then you're putting yourself in a position that you could also get another return when the next RSP season comes back around. So it's a really advantageous time. If you don't know what to do in this time and it's scary and you're kind of having paralysis by analysis, that's okay. People usually have that. But you can reach out to people around you. Just make sure that they're not trying to swindle you and sell you on something, some weird strategic, complex strategy. It's nice and simple. What's your cash flow able to support? Can you refinance? Can you pay down interest? Or sorry, can you pay down principal? What can you do? And you should be able to understand what the strategy is. And if not, get them to re-explain it to you over and over and over again until you do, or just find somebody else that can perhaps explain it to you better. And we're always here as that second opinion. So any questions about that, let us know. We are at time. We want to keep these semi-short so you can absorb all these new ideas without having 15 other ones coming around the corner. If you want more, it's coming next week. We're posting every single week about different strategies, different ideas for you to improve your financial situation. We ask one thing. If you got value from this, make sure you save it, send it, subscribe. It just, gives us more confidence to keep on putting out information that people need. And of course, any questions, just drop them on the comment section on whatever platform you're watching, and we'll see you all next week. I missed the